Now that we've blocked in the front section here, we're going to go ahead and move on to blocking in the mid section, right in this area just behind the front. And this will actually be fairly quick. We're not going to be doing too much. You know, a lot of the modeling that we're going to have in this midsection is all going to be in the rough details. But what we are going to block in are some of the larger details. So we'll get this main frame shape in here, maybe get this circular shape right in here, maybe these pieces going back that look to be, you know, they could be exhaust, they could be vents, whatever they may be, you know, air filters. We'll throw those in. We'll do the exhaust line here. So we'll do some of the more major details, kind of like we did on the front section where we threw in, for the windscreens, we threw in the bars between them and the main shapes in the body form. So we're going to do that same kind of thing, but then most of the detail will be done with the follow-up sections, doing all the small details, and then of course we'll also be blocking in the wings and the tail. So we're basically just going to go from this part here up to here. So selecting my mesh, we can just go ahead and hit tab and go right into edit mode. And what I'd like to go ahead and do is start separating some things out to more precise pieces. So for example here, we've got all the green paneling areas. So let's go ahead and select that by hitting L. And you'll notice right now that it selects everything in here when we just hovered over that vertex and hit L. So what I want to do is let's select this edge here that we can see. We'll rotate down. And then I want to just go ahead and hit V to rip that apart. So now I can see these are two separate pieces. And the reason that I want to do that is if I then hit 3 to go back to side view, I can select this again, and you'll notice it just selects this side paneling. So now let's just go ahead and hit P to separate by selection, just like that, and then we'll be good to go. Now later on we may go ahead and separate out this section as well, but we're not going to worry about that for the time being because I want to get some more things blocked in and kind of determine what's what in here before separating that out more. So now that we have our midsection, and actually while we're at it, let's go ahead and first off we can delete this vertex because that's just part of the wings, and then we're going to go ahead, let's separate or select, no, actually we'll go ahead and we'll keep that as part of the midsection. Since it's, the reason being is if we go into top view, we can see that it's still part of that gray area, and even though that's probably easier to separate out with the wings, I want to go ahead and keep it as part of the midsection because it's the same substance basically. You know, we're doing all these gray areas in here as the mid. So let's go and select this area as well, and we'll just hit P and separate by selection. So that will be more of the tail. And then we've also got these ones up here, which we can just select all those by hovering over any of the vertices assigned and hitting L. We'll separate those out. And then while in object mode by hitting tab, let's select this one. We'll shift right click to select this one, and let's just hit Control J to join those, since those really ought to be part of the same mesh. Let's also select this again, and we'll hit L, separate that by selection by hitting P, and again join that to our front section. So we right click on here, shift right click on here, and then hit Control J to join them. And so then we can kind of see we've got the main cockpit area, we've got the midsection, and then we've got all the kind of the engine components in here. Then we've got our wings, and finally we have our tail areas, which actually we have in two parts. So let's go ahead and select these, and we'll hit Control J to join those as well. So now on this, let's go ahead and select it, and while we're at it, let's just hit Shift Space, which will unmaximize our view because I was actually working maximize. So we still have our concept art here, we've got our outliner up here, and the outliner is actually what I'm shooting for here, because I want to go ahead and while we have it, have them separated. Let's go ahead and name these parts. So let's go ahead and name this one by control clicking on it, geo underscore body mid. This will be geo underscore body or underscore front, and wings. That can be actually just stay the same. We've got this one is tail, and let's just actually just call it just tail. And then here is our geo underscore cockpit interior. And so that's good. Okay, so now we've got everything nicely named. So I'm going to remaximize my view by hitting Shift Space. And we'll select this one again. Let's hit Tab to go into edit mode. And what I first want to do is just kind of fill in some of these holes we have. So let's select these 4 vertices. And then we can just hit F to fill in a face. Let's go ahead and select these. We'll fill a face there and a face. Well, we won't fill a face there yet because you'll notice we have 2 vertices here and only one here. So let's hit Control R and add in a new edge loop along here. And we'll line it up right about there. Then we can select those, fill in a face. And let's leave this empty for the time being because you notice that that's going to be where the wheel well will be. And so let's just start off now by adding in some of the major blocking sections. So one of the easiest things to do will be to go ahead and add in some of the wheel stuff. So let's first just center our cursor right here. Well, you notice it's still centered along the Z-axis here, so it's still good there. And let's just hit Shift-A, add in a circle. On this circle, let's immediately hit F6. Let's change the vertice count to 12, because that'll probably be about what we'll use later on. We can change the radius to, say, 0.25, ought to be just, or actually no, 0.1 will probably be a bit better. There we go. Let's also go ahead and align it to view, and then we can just move our mouse over to leave that. Let's then scale it up a little bit. Let's also then just hit E to extrude, then hit S to scale it in. We'll go into the width of the tire and leave it about there. Then we'll extrude in again, so we hit E and then S immediately to scale it. Then left click. Let's go ahead and hit Control L, which will select everything that is connected to the selection. Let's hit 1 to go into front view, and then what we want to do is move this over so that we can add some depth to our wheel. But right now, we've still got our mirror modifier on, which has the clipping enabled. So let's disable the clipping for a moment, and then let's go ahead and just move this over by hitting G and then X to lock it to the X-axis, about like there. It's about the width of the wheel. And then we'll left click, and let's go and hit E to extrude again, and just take it in. Actually, before we do that, let's re-enable our clipping, and then we can just hit E to extrude. It's automatically locked to the normal, which in this case happens to align with the X-axis since all of our faces are facing the exact same way. And we can just move this in to the center until it locks, then left click. And then what we want to do is get rid of these interior faces. So let's just hit X and delete faces. And there we go. So that will give us a nice wheel block. Let's go ahead and adjust our materials on this. So we can just hover over this, one of the vertices, and let's hit L, and then choose the dark gray material and click Assign. Let's go ahead and duplicate this wheel. Well, let's see. I guess we don't actually have any other wheels directly in the design. Or no, actually, it looks like we've got wheels right here. So this is actually going to be where the other wheels will fold down. And so let's go ahead and hit Shift D. We'll move this over to right here. And then what I want to do is again go back to our modifiers tab here, uncheck the clipping option, hit 1 to go into front view, and then let's just move this over to a nice width, say right about there. So it'll be about the width. If we look at our concept, we can see the wheel is right there, and so it should be about the width of our panel right in here. And then what I want to do is let's alt right click to select this edge loop. Let's hit Shift S and cursor to selected. And then we're going to select the whole wheel by hitting Control L. So again, that selects everything that's linked to the current selection. And what I want to do is just duplicate this and mirror it across such that we have this surface on both sides. So let's hit period to scale around the 3D cursor. You can also choose this menu down here. And then let's just hit Shift D, and that will create a duplicate and automatically put us in grab mode. But we don't want to be in grab mode, so let's just right click to cancel that. But we still have our duplicate. And now let's just hit S, X, and -1 to effectively mirror it along the X-axis. And then we can just go ahead and select everything and W remove doubles. And that will give us that wheel block right there. Okay, let's go ahead, and while we're focused on the wheel, let's actually go ahead and move that perhaps a bit better in place there. Let's go ahead and add in this piece right here for the wheel attachment. The way I want to do that is let's just position our cursor right there, which is still at the center of the wheel. We're going to hit Shift A and add in a cube. On this cube, notice we still have clipping disabled, which is good. Let's go ahead and just scale this down. And I'm just going to scale it down to about right there. And then let's just hit S and X and scale this down to just a little bit wider than the wheel so that we, definitely a nice solid base. That ought to be good. Then let's deselect everything by hitting A. Let's just hit B to left click and drag, select this section, and hit S and Z. Scale this down. You'll notice right now we're still scaling towards the cursor, which we don't really want, so let's go ahead and hit comma. and then we can just extrude this out. I'm just going to extrude over to right there, and then this looks to go up in here, so let's just extrude this again. We'll rotate it around by hitting R, and then move that up to right in there. We can go ahead, and then to do this section, let's just hit Control R, add in 2 edge loops, bring this down to about there. Maybe we'll go ahead and Alt-right click on this edge loop to select it, move it over. We can go ahead and hit R to rotate it about like that. And then let's deselect everything with A. And again, I'm going to hit B to bring up my box select. And I'm just going to left click and drag across this section, hit E to extrude, scale this down to about there, and then hit S and X, or S and Y, sorry, to scale into there. And then we can bring that up a little bit. And really what this looks to be is this is going to be, the muffler is going to be attached to this apparently. Or not necessarily the muffler, you know, whatever this may be, our exhaust, you know, and we'll go ahead and make this the muffler. So it looks like this is going to kind of form out to back there, and then the exhaust pipe will come out to right in there. So that'd be a good point for that to lock into. Let's go ahead and work on this front right here. So I'll just, again, hit B to box select, bring this over, hit S and Z to scale down along the Z axis, maybe rotate this a bit. And notice I'm aligning these vertices with this notch here, and then I'll bring it down to there. So let's extrude, bring it down, hit S and Z, scale down. Notice that I'm being very careful not to scale along the X-axis because I want to keep this width along the whole thing. Extrude again, and I'm just going to rotate around. You notice I've got this straight edge here, so I'm going to make my edges line up with that. And then I also have this corner here, so let's go ahead and add in another edge loop by hitting Control R, left click. We can just leave that right about in the center so that these right in here are all nicely distributed. But then I can go ahead and hit A to deselect everything and just quickly Control left click and drag to select these vertices and move that down. And you also notice that I'm working almost exclusively in wireframe mode, and this is partially so that I can see my reference, but also so I can select anything that happens to be behind my mesh. And this is also because you'll notice that when I'm in wireframe mode, I work with this option selected down in the header, and this is the limit selection of visible, such that if I were to turn this off, you'll notice that I can see all my background vertices. Well, this is nice, as it does allow me to see everything that's behind it, but also to select any vertices that happen to be behind my current view. The problem with this is that as our model gets more and more complex, our scene is going to get very, very messy. You know, we're going to have a lot of vertices distracting us from what we want to focus on. So using this option keeps things much cleaner, but you can no longer select the background vertices unless you're in wireframe mode. And so this is one of the reasons that I also work in wireframe mode a lot. Moving on, we want to go ahead and extrude this out, but you'll notice that we have a notch right here. You know, so this goes down and then continues extruding there. To do this well, we want to go ahead and just extrude from right here rather than this whole surface in here. So what we want to do is let's just hit Control R, add in an edge loop, and then left click. And you'll notice that just in the center happens to be lined up almost exactly. So let's just go ahead and right click to cancel the movement. We can move this up to make it a little more accurate. And then we can grab this and extrude it down to right about there. We'll rotate this, maybe scale along the Z-axis a bit. And then you can see that the wheel has basically a pivot joint or a bar that comes out from behind here and then goes in front of the wheel to attach. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude this again like this. And then we're going to basically create a fender out of this. So let's take here and we'll just extrude this around. Again, so I just hit E to extrude and then R to rotate after getting my extrusion to where I want. There we go. And that ought to be about right. Although maybe let's separate this out just a little bit more. You know, so there's some room for the shocks in there. About like that. And what I want to do then is add in this kind of L joint in here. So let's position our cursor right about here. We'll go into front view and position our cursor to be right about there. So that now we can just hit Shift A, add in a circle. On the circle, let's hit F6, choose Align to View, and take the vertex count probably down to 8. Ought to be just about right. And then we can just scale this way down. We'll go hit 3 to go into side view again. And that looks to be about the right size in there. Go back to front view, make sure we're not intersecting with our mesh, which we are. So let's move this out. Go back to side view. And then let's go ahead and I'm going to do a little trick here, and that is we want to keep this perfectly straight. But since our object is rotated, that becomes a little more difficult. But we can use the fact that Blender likes to extrude along the normals to our advantage. And the way that we do that is to go ahead and hit E to extrude and scale in this circle such that we have some faces here. So now when we select this, we'll extrude the entire thing. And even if we rotate this, it'll then... Oh, actually, I guess I need to finish this off. So let's select this, and we'll hit E to extrude again, and then hit W and merge at center. So now, if I extrude this... Well, actually, okay, it made a liar out of me. It didn't actually extrude along the normal, so let's just hit Control-Z, step back a few times, and we'll just do it manually. So instead of what I'm going to do, I'm going to extrude once along the X or Y-axis, so I'll just immediately hit Y, bring this out to about right there. I'll right-click, select this one, pull this along the Y-axis there, and then what I want to do is I want to spin this 90 degrees. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to hit 7 to go in the top view. I'm going to go ahead and actually select this vertex here, hit Shift-S, cursor to selected, then hit Control-L, and I want to just move my whole object out just a little bit. So hitting Control-Shift-Tab to make sure I'm in increment snap. I'm going to hit G and hold down Control and move this out like that once, and then also down one. And this will make sense in a second why I'm doing this. So now I'm going to deselect everything, Alt-right-click to select this, and then I'm going to hit Alt-R, which is my spin function. You'll notice this is immediately just extruded and spun this around, but it's gone the wrong direction. So let's hit F6 to bring up our operator panel, and let's change the degrees. Well, the degrees are 90, but our axis should be, I think, -1 along the Z-axis. We'll flip that around. And actually, this is still not quite right, so let's hit Control-Z. We want to actually bring that back up to perfectly aligned with the cursor. So now we can go ahead, and if we hit Alt-R, hit F6, and then type in -1 along the Z-axis, that then spins very nicely. But let's change the steps down. We don't need nearly so many. We'll just go down to 3. And there we go. Now I have a perfect elbow joint on here. So now I can just select this. I'll hit E to extrude, take it in, and then what I want to go ahead and do is select the whole thing, and I want to just line this up with the wheel here. So I'm just going to go in here, I can line those vertices up there, and then I'll line those vertices up right there. And so what I can actually do is hit Control-Shift-Tab, switch into edge mode, and I'll hit G, Y, hold down Control, snap to right there, and then G, Z, hold down Control and snap to there. And so now that's perfectly lined up with the wheel there. I want to go ahead and assign the dark gray material to this. So I'll click Assign. We'll switch back into Side View. And then I want to pull this over like this along the Y-axis. Hit Control-Shift-Tab, switch back into Increment, or actually switch to Vertex Snap. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to grab this elbow that we created like this. Just Alt-Shift right-clicking on those. I'm going to hit Shift-D, right-click, SY, -1, flip that around. I'm going to pull it down here, and then hit G, Y, hold down Control. That'll snap to there. And then I can go ahead and hit Shift-D, right-click, and from top view, which is 7, I'll hit SX and -1 to flip that around. Or actually, SY, -1. I guess that's still not right. Instead, I'll just go ahead and rotate this. I'm going to rotate it, I think 180 degrees. Yeah, there we go, 180 degrees. I'll pull this out to about here. I'm going to hit G, Y, snap right to there, and then I'll Alt-right-click select this, hit E to extrude, and snap to there. And then I can go ahead and select everything, W, and remove doubles. Removed all those. Then I can go ahead and select this, and I would extrude that further in there. Now we can... What I want to do, such that this stays centered, I'll just select one of these circles, hit Shift-S, and cursor to selected. And then I can select this whole thing by hitting L, hit period to rotate around the cursor, and then I'll just rotate that down to fit. So that gives me that nice joint very easily. Okay, let's make some adjustments to this such that it fits our crossbeam nicely. So we'll just pull this up here maybe. We can bring this up, add a bit more thickness to it, bring that one up. Maybe bring this one over like that. We'll pull this one up. We can pull this up a little bit. Move that one over a bit. And let's see, we'll go ahead and just leave that as it is for the time being until we kind of figure out what exactly we're doing with all of that. So now let's go ahead. I'm just going to grab this circle, or actually I'm going to grab the surface 2 loops like this. Hit 3 to go into side view. I'm going to hit Shift D, pull them up for this. I'll hit Column to scale around the individual center. I'll scale that up, pull that in, and then pull that in along the x-axis, which then shows me that I need to adjust some of these forms in here. So let's grab these 3 vertices, actually these 6 vertices. We'll just go ahead and pull them in about like that. Doesn't have to be exact just yet because we don't really know exactly how this is going to be constructed. But let's also go ahead and we'll just pull this vertex up, and then I want to just extrude this over to there and to there, and then I want to just fill in these faces. So I'll select those, hit F, select these 4, hit F, and check that out. Let's go ahead and grab this vertex. We'll move it over along the x-axis to there. Should be about right. And then this, I'm going to go ahead and hit E to extrude, take it in along the x-axis, E to extrude again, scale it in. And then I will go ahead and just leave that like it is. Or actually, let's go ahead and polish it off. So what I'll do to fill this in, I'm going to select these 2, hit F to fill a face. I'm going to hit, or fill an edge. I'm going to hit W and subdivide, because then I can go ahead and connect this here. But you'll notice that I still need another vertex in here. So let's select these again. We'll hit W and subdivide, which then gives me the perfect number of vertices to then just fill this perfectly like so. Whoops. There we go. So now I have a solid surface there. Let's go ahead and select this. We'll hit E to extrude, take it back along the x-axis about like that. That's looking good. Let's go and add in our exhaust. So I'm just going to, let's actually just grab these two loops. We're going to hit Shift D, move them over here, rotate them around like this. And let's scale them up. We can scale this one up a bit further. And then actually if we hit Control Space and switch this over to a normal, that should work. But in this case, it doesn't actually. Here we go. So what I did is I just select this loop, and then I extruded it in such that I have these flat faces here. And then using the normal, I can now extrude these along the z-axis very easily. So we'll do the same thing down here. And then I can just go ahead and pull these on along the z-axis. I'll grab this one, extrude it in a bit more, and then again, select it, pull it down, maybe scale it up. And then we don't really care about this being exact. And so I'll select this loop, and then I'm going to just extrude this down to right here, scale it down a little bit. I'm going to hit Control Space to turn off the manipulator, bring this down here. And then I want to go ahead and just rotate these around. Actually, no, I don't want to do that just yet because we actually want to rotate this whole thing. So let's select this. I'm going to pull these up, hit Control Space, turn the manipulators back on, move it up a bit, scale it up. Then we're going to extrude these in, scale down. And you'll notice we're left with an inside loop there, so we need to select it, hit X and delete. And then what I want to do is grab this inside loop, Control Space, turn that off, and we're just going to extrude it in just somewhere approximately like that, because then we're going to select this whole loop, and I want to just move this in along the x-axis about like that, and then we're going to hit R and Z, rotate this around, something like that. And then we can go ahead and grab this. Let's hit Control 7 to go into our bottom view. Deselect that by hitting Control or Alt Shift S and right clicking on it. Then we'll hit E to extrude, bring this down through here and through here. And then we'll bring it in like this. And extrude back, get approximately straight, and then go straight back to right about there. And maybe we ought to go ahead and we'll select this whole thing. Then we'll take those, deselect this one, we'll pull this up a little bit, deselect that loop by Alt-Shift right-clicking on it, pull that one up, deselect that, pull that one up a little bit, and then it's going to be coming out right in there. Okay, so then we can go ahead and maybe pull this down. Let's add in another edge loop right in here. The reason being is then I want to go ahead, select, hit Control Tab, go in face mode. I'm going to select these faces and that face, and starting right here, I'm going to go ahead and hit E to extrude, take it up along the normal to about there. I'll select these interior faces, hit X, delete the faces, hit 3 to go back to side view, Control Tab to go back to vertex mode, and then find those. They're right here. And I don't want them to go up nearly that far. I just want to go up basically for the exhaust. So we'll take this down to here. Then we'll grab these, deselect those ones that I don't want, pull them down to about right there. And this one come down to about right there. And what I want to go ahead and do is, you notice that if we go into face mode, this is a solid face, but it's really distorted, which will tend to cause us some problems. I'm going to hit X, delete the faces. Then I'm going to add in an edge loop right here by hitting Control R. I'm going to move it up to about right there, hit Control Tab, go back to vertex mode, select these 4 vertices, hit F to fill in that face, but I want the dark gray, so I'll click Assign on there. Pull these in along the y-axis just a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and rip that apart, grab this vertex and this vertex, pull them down along the z-axis, and then fill in a face right there. Okay, so that gives me kind of an exhaust channel there. Then I can grab these. I'll pull them in a bit more along the x-axis, maybe to about right there and right there. And then I can go ahead and just leave that like it is for the time being. Although I do want to grab these vertices here, take them up along the z-axis such that that's able to go straight through. And we'll grab these, pull them up along the z to be right in there. Okay, so, you know, with this design, there's so many different parts in here that we really just have to make up a lot of it. So, you know, don't be shy on that. We just basically, you know, go with what feels right. So in this case, I'm going to just duplicate this down to here, rotate it around, bring it down to about right in there, bring it in towards the x-axis until that center line basically adds up. And then I'll deselect this section, bring this in to right about there. I'll go ahead and go back over to the modifiers, re-enable clipping, select this, pull that back towards the center, and there we go. Okay, so that gives me that. I've got my wheels back here. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more blocking. I want to get these sections in here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to go ahead and grab this section. I'm going to Shift D, bring them over here. Let's go and hit Alt-S, or no, Control-N first, which will recalculate the normals, then Alt-S, and that will just scale those out in the direction of the normals. So then I can just scale this down, bring it down about right there. Looks about right, bring it in a little bit, and there we go. Then I can go ahead and I'm going to extrude this in first, grab these, hit Control Space to grab the normals, and the way that I'm going to do this time, that will save me some extra deletion, is I'm going to grab this, and then if we hit in and scroll all the way down to the bottom, we have this thing called Transform Orientations. And what we can do is just go ahead and click Create and choose this new orientation called Face, which if I now select these ones in here and hit X, delete the vertices, no matter what my selection is, I keep this angle of the manipulator. So now I can just go ahead and say E to extrude, then I'll just double tap Z to go along what it considers to be the current Z axis, which is the manipulator basically. So then I can just scale this or move that out, scale it down, extrude in again, scale in. I can go down here, I'll extrude, scale, extrude, double tap Z, pull it out, and you'll notice that things still stay perfectly aligned. Okay, And looking at my concept, I'm just going to go in here. Let's hit tab to leave edit mode. Let's hit go down here to layer 2. Hit 3 to go to side view. And let's just maximize this, kind of see what we've got. And it looks like these are going to curve down and then go on back through there. And so going back to layer 1, let's go ahead and see what we need to do. So first, I'm just going to hit E to extrude, double tap Z, pull that out. Whoops, I went way too far. I can go and hit in now, because you can actually now see you created one. You can choose that from there. We could go ahead and name that one. In this case, it could just be current or whatever you want to name it. It doesn't matter, because sometimes you'll set up a whole bunch of those. So now I can just go ahead and move this down to right about here. Maybe I'll move it in a bit more. And even though this is part of the tail fin, since it's directly connected, I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. And then I can, add in, say, another loop right in here. Then I can go ahead and rotate this and not have to worry quite so much about getting things exact, because I've already done this right in here. And there was a little trick that I just did. By hitting Control R, if I want these two loops to be exactly aligned, but since this one's in here, if I were to cut one in the middle, it would no longer be completely aligned. I can just hit Control R, add a loop, scroll it all the way down to one end or the other, whichever one I want to line up, left click, and then I can just move that away, and it'll be exactly the same as that other one in there. Okay, let's go ahead, and I'm just going to select this. I'm going to hit Shift D, pull this down along the Z axis. I can rotate a little bit, bring it in there. I'll grab this, bring this one out along the X axis, bring that up, bring this out a bit. If I double tap R, I can go into what's called trackball rotation, but in that case, it's actually not very good. So never mind, just ignore that I said that. Here we are. And okay, that looks pretty good. So then I can just go ahead and I'll grab this. I'm going to hit E to extrude. I'm just going to rotate in. And I'll rotate around the global Z axis. Then I'll extrude it again. Rotate like this. Global Z. This ought to go in along the X though. Then this one in along the X. And we're just going to get these approximate, because we're actually going to redo these tubings in such a way that it'll allow us to actually get all that detail in precisely. And so right now we just want something that's going to basically give us a placeholder to do them later. And so there we go. That'll just be approximate for now. Saving our file. Let's go ahead and let's work with the body a little bit. All these tubings we'll do later, because we're going to do them in such a way that we can do a lot of them very quickly. Let's go ahead, and what I want to do is just kind of block in some of these shapes in here. So I'm going to hit Control Tab, go into face mode. I'm just going to grab this face, hit Shift D, scale it down, rotate it a bit like this. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control Space to turn off the manipulator. Hit Control Tab, go back to vertex mode. I'm just going to go in here, kind of position these like some of these panels in here. Hit Control R, add an edge loop. Then I'll pull this down. Then I'll select the whole thing. I'm going to move it out along the X-axis a bit. Then hit E to extrude. Take it in along the X. Hit X and delete the faces. Then I'll select this one again. I'll hit Shift D. Bring it down to about there. Rotate it around. Then I'll go ahead and bring these ones up over. Just kind of fitting that general design right in there. No idea what these are, but after we throw in a lot of these kinds of details, it'll really add up and start to give us the effect that we want. So again, I'm doing this, just selecting it, then hit Shift D, and then I can move these down. I'll take these ones over here, and this one in like that, just something approximate. Let's go ahead and go back into face mode. I'm going to select all these. Now I just want to pull them out along the X-axis a little bit more. Then what we can do is, let's go down here. I want to go ahead and add in an edge loop right here. And then I want to just pull these up. Oops. Control Z. I want to then pull these ones up. And I'm going to say that we've got a big like central circular part here. So I'm going to center my cursor. Actually, I'm going to hit Shift C first to center my cursor completely. Then I'll position it right there. I'm going to hit 1 to go into front view. And then hit Shift A, add in a circle. On the circle, I'm going to hit F6, change the vertex count down to 18. Oop, not 108, 18. And I'm going to go ahead and align it to view. And then I want to scale it down. 3 to go to side view, scale it down to about right there. Move it up, rotate it a little bit. And that looks pretty good. So then I'm going to go ahead and extrude it out about like this. Bring this one in a bit more. Then we hit E to extrude, scale this down something about like that. Select the whole thing maybe, and let's scale it up just a little bit more. And then I'm going to go ahead and deselect this whole center line from the front by hitting B and middle click and dragging. Then I'll hit X, delete the vertices, because remember we've got the mirror modifier on, but I didn't want to delete those early on because otherwise I wouldn't have a perfectly symmetrical model when I was done. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm just going to select this edge loop. I'm going to hit X, delete the vertices, hit this, delete this vertex up here, and then we'll go ahead and grab this. We can select these two vertices, and if we hit Shift S and cursor to selected, and then scale towards the cursor by hitting period, then we can still scale those in a perfectly circular way. I want to go and add in an edge loop right here, and then again, and then we're going to select again these two vertices, hit Shift S, cursor to selected, select this, and then scale it in, and I'm going to add in another edge loop right in here. And we'll select these two vertices, Shift S, cursor to selection, then Alt right click, select these, just so I can add in that kind of groove right there. I want to add in a kind of a block right in here, so I'm just going to hit position my cursor, Shift A, add in a cube, scale this down about right there, going to hit 1 to go into front view, move this over such that it locks, and then I can move it back again. Again, just left clicking each time such that it locks there. Hit comma to rotate around the individual center. Then I'll grab this, hit E to extrude, pull it up, maybe rotate this a little bit, add in another loop with Control R, then left click, and then I'll deselect everything, just grab just the bottom of it, then I can move it up to get this kind of arc in here. Let's go and select it. Again, assign our dark gray material. Let's make it a little bit wider by just pulling it out like this. Then I still have my inside faces in here, so a real quick, easy way to do that is since I deleted this face here, I can just select this one, hit X, and delete the edge, and that will remove all of that. And then I want to add in a block or a notch around the wheel, so let's just add in a loop cut right here, and then another one right here, and then go in here and find this center vertex right there. Oh, and actually, let's add one above it as well, and then we'll just find this corner vertex, hit X, and delete vertices. And then what we could do is go ahead and select this. I hit Control Tab, go into vertex mode, Control Shift Tab, hit E to extrude, Z, and snap, or actually just snap right to there, and then grab these two, and again, snap to there, select everything, W, remove doubles. We have this stray vertex, actually these two, so let's just hit X, delete those vertices. Let's go ahead and grab these two here and pull them over along the Y-axis to get them out of the range of this. Then let's go ahead and select these areas right here. If I can get this selected. There we go. And I'm just going to extrude this down. I just want to follow the wheel, bring this down to here, and then again, one last time. Then we need to actually pull this one up. And that just kind of helps create some other foundations in there. Let's go ahead and grab this vertex and this vertex. We'll hit X, delete those. We can take this one here and these ones. Just going to pull them up along the Z-axis about like that. And then what we'll do eventually is go ahead and connect all these, but for the time being, we're still blocking. So we're just trying to get a bunch of different shapes in here that we really like. I see a kind of a circular forming here, so I'm just going to grab this, or actually, let's just position our cursor right about there and here, Shift-A, add in a circle. Again, just change this down to, say, 8, maybe 0.1, which will avoid our clipping, and then align to view. Go over here. Let's just scale it down. Then we'll extrude this a little bit. Then we can select all of it and rotate it. And now that it's selected like this, we can just, add in another loop here. Then we can select these two, hit E to extrude, right click, scale down, maybe move it down a little bit, select this loop, delete it, pull this in, maybe rotate these around through here. And then we'll again assign our dark gray. We need to maybe just pull this out a little bit, about like that. And then we'll bring this down through there. And then just to kind of complete this, let's go ahead and grab these, and let's just extrude this up through here and through there. Actually bring it over a little bit more along the y-axis, maybe to about there. We can bring this one over and this vertex over. And we'll just go ahead and bring this in all the way to there. We can select this. Let's select these two vertices, Shift-S, cursor to selection. Then again, we'll hit period, extrude this in, scale it in like that. Maybe a bit more. We can grab this vertex and this, or these ones here, and let's just round off this form a little bit by pulling this in along the x-axis. Then we can pull these ones up so it doesn't go through that there. Let's maybe go ahead and add in this central line. Or actually, this looks like it just continues on back. And so let's actually just select. Well, no, actually, let's go ahead and just extrude these here. We're going to do this. We're going to select this, and then we're going to hit or deselect these ones in here. And we want to hit E to extrude. Then we're going to right click, and we're going to just hit B, and then middle click and drag to deselect that. We're going to pull this down. And then we're going to select these again, hit E to extrude, right click, deselect that, and then pull these down again. And what that does now is we can go ahead and, let's select this whole thing and hit Shift-H so we can hide everything else. Because apparently I did something weird with these vertices. Let's just hit X, delete those, and then we'll grab these ones here, extrude, snap to there, select everything, W, remove doubles. And then we can just go ahead and select these right here that form the two triangles and hit F to merge those together. And then we want to go ahead and scale towards our cursor or individual center. We can pull these up, pull these up. Let's go ahead and flatten these out completely by selecting them, hit S and 0, SZ and then 0, sorry. Pull those in through there, and then we could go ahead and let's just extrude these out let's just pull those out just a little bit through there. Hit Alt-H to unhide everything. We'll grab these. Make sure they go all the way through. Let's just actually pull these in towards the center a bit more. Just select them, hit G and X, pull them in. And what I want to do is just merge it right through in here. Grab this line where it's about to go through or hit the center line. Deselect all those, pull those back out. And then we'll pull those in a bit more, and then we can take these up. There we are. And we're getting closer. I don't want to go too much longer, or we're just going to start getting a little too long. I like these in here. Looks like we've got some more shapes right in through there, but I want to work with this body shape a bit. Let's go ahead and grab these, pull these up along the Z-axis a bit, And then let's add in some casing around this big circular piece. So I'm going to grab this edge, and this edge. And then I'm just going to hit E to extrude, take them over like that. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just connect these right here. And then we can actually go ahead and hit Control E, slide this edge a bit like so right there. And then we can go ahead and grab this vertex, hit E to extrude, hit X to take it along the X-axis, move it in, and then go ahead and fill in this face right there. So we're just kind of completing some different areas. And all of a sudden you can start to see how all these different sections start to add up to give us a really cool high-tech engine looking mess of sorts. We're going to go ahead and we're not going to do too much more with that because this really is good for the blocking stage to just get a good idea of our different sections, because now we've got a lot of them primary details in here and the forms, and now we can just start laying in all the different parts and really bringing it all together to give us a complete model. And so we'll just leave that like it is now. Let's just I'm just looking to see if there's any last things. Oh, one, this face should not be green. It should be gray. And let's hit Control Tab, go back to vertex mode, and let's just go ahead and bring this down. And then one last piece will be to grab these two vertices. And I'm just going to extrude them up like this, and like this. And this will come around to the bottom of the wing. And so then we just need to grab them. We're going to bring them out along the X-axis there. Deselect this one. Bring them out some more. And that just about looks good. So I'm just kind of pulling them out along the X-axis to get a kind of a nice curve through in here. Maybe I'll pull that out a bit more, and that one a bit more. So you can see we're kind of creating that shape, line it up with each one of those grooves there. And so then lastly, let's just go ahead and select these. We're going to extrude in along the X-axis right like that. And then let's just fill that edge there. Let's add another edge loop right here, which then we can line those up. And actually, we'll just go ahead and remove that edge that we just added, because this way we keep our edge flow very nicely through there. And we can go ahead and move that up to there, and this one up to right there, where we can kind of see these different forms coming through. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and call that quits for the time being on this one. We'll pick this up on the next section for blocking in the major wings detail to, again, start kind of pulling everything together.